Okay, so the two easiest ways to break immersion in a video game are to take control away from the player, or to show the player's character doing something that the player wouldn't do in real life. Anytime you're doing either one of those two things, it better be for a narrative reason, because you are showing a difference between the player and the player's character. So that can be a good thing in something like a JRPG, where you're watching the stories of some other characters unfold. But when you're doing a first-person game, and especially if you're doing a first-person survival horror game, the last thing you want to do is take the player out of the experience like that. And from what I can tell from this Outlast trailer, they're doing both of those things. Okay, so you start off here, and I love the company name, by the way, Red Barrels. That's great. Alright, so right off the bat, there's some problems. There's this opening with like a bunch of stock photographs and pictures of papers and all this text over the top of it, and you know, that works if you're just establishing the story, but this makes me think of Prototype. This reminds me a lot of Prototype, and Prototype was an action game, so, you know, just right off the bat, I've got that distraction in the back of my mind. Alright, so then we cut to the present day, and the graphics are pretty good, actually. You know, they're nothing groundbreaking, but what is groundbreaking these days? Nothing. It's, you know, it's competent. It's very good. It's got nice lighting here, really moody. Everything's dramatic. And then we go into the elevator, and the flickering lights threaten to trigger epileptic seizures. So then this guy puts his hands up to move the gate out of the way, and there's just something about the way his hands are animated and the way the gate moves that just makes me think that this isn't quite synced up right. These guys are trying too hard to make a visually appealing game. Alright, so he's venturing down this corridor, and hello, Silent Hill! Nice to see you in this game. And then over here, he finds a corpse. He's been walking like 5 feet into the facility, and he's already found a dead body. So, being the intrepid reporter that he is, he doesn't call the police, he keeps exploring the facility. Gotta get the whole scoop after all. So, and then this is the part that pisses me off the most, okay? He turns and he sees a zombie. He actually sees the figure of a person crouching in the darkness and then running away. Why would anybody assume that that's okay? This wasn't a trick of the light. He wasn't like, oh, I thought I saw something. Oh, it must just be the wind. No, this was an actual person crouching in the darkness and then sprinting off to the left like an Olympic runner. Okay? If you were playing Splinter Cell, one of the guys on this worked on Splinter Cell, okay? If you were playing Splinter Cell and you were watching some guards, and then all of a sudden one of the guards started running like hell in one direction, what would you assume? You would assume that he had noticed you and you've been made, and that you need to get the fuck out of there because there's going to be 10 or 20 guards coming because he's going to sound the alarm. That is what a real person would think in this situation. What does our protagonist do? Oh, I saw someone running. It's nothing! And I don't know if that's what they were going for, or if they were going for it's a trick of the light or something, but it was so obviously not a trick of the light. It is like just painfully obvious. And if that's what happens in the game, I'm sorry, that's not the way a survival horror game should go. I feel like the people that did Amnesia can do better than this. They should be able to do better. They've done better than this. They've done better foreshadowing than an obvious guy in the darkness that runs away, and then you're like, oh well, it's just the wind. Alright, I've ranted about that enough. Let's move on to the next part. So, the guy opens the door, puts his bare hand on the dirty door. I guess he took his tetanus shot in advance. And then we switch to the paranormal activity shot. I guess a camcorder is as good a way as any to shoehorn this fad into video games, and I can see how it would seem like it would be better than using a flashlight, except that all the enemies can see you anyway, so it doesn't really pay off. So you'd think he would just start using a flashlight at some point, unless he honestly wants to catch footage of his own death that badly. Alright, so then we get to this point where he sees a zombie staring right at him with glowing eyes. And how does he react? Well, he gets distracted by a puddle of blood on the floor. And then this pisses me off so much. He spends like a minute just following the trail of blood in the darkness. What are we supposed to think here? Like, does he assume that guy is still alive? I don't know. He's distracted and he's not paying attention to anything but the guy on the wall. And the guy on the wall does start to move, but I mean, by that point we're already into the jump scare. So he fights this guy off by kicking the zombie, and it looks like he would have left his camcorder behind, because it seems like he dropped it when he got attacked, and I didn't see him pick it up again. But I assume he still has it because he uses it later. So now he's walking around, and there's zombies everywhere, and there's a bright light in the ceiling, and he goes towards it. And, it's good use of lighting to guide your player through the level, I guess. And then there's just more jump scares, more monsters. He's running like an Olympic athlete, being chased by a zombie that's running like an Olympic athlete, and he finally goes into this room, and then he switches back to paranormal activity cam, and he gets under the bed. And so then the door bursts open, and he has to switch from camera to not camera, because otherwise he'll be blinded by the light. I can already tell this mechanic isn't going to be annoying at all. Just have to switch back and forth when there's lights flickering on and off everywhere. Alright, so he's under the bed, and the zombie bursts in, and then the zombie closes the door. Do zombies close doors now? That just seemed weird to me at the time. So then he's looking around the darkness. Gee, I wonder if it will turn out that the zombie is still in the room with him. Oh, hello. And so that's Outlast. That's the first impression that they decided to give us of Outlast. I really don't know what they were going for with this. I mean, it's visually appealing, It's got some good tension, some good jump scares. They're trying to pace it out like a horror movie, but it just comes across as so stiff and cliched and dumb, above all dumb. Like, okay, if I'm playing this game with the controller and I'm moving down the hallway, what's up with that zombie that was crouching in the corner? Does the camera just automatically force me to turn my head and then force me to turn back the direction I was looking in the first place? Is that a mechanic? Is there like a, oh, what's that thing, mechanic in this game? Or was that just the player, kind of playing along with the scenario to make it seem scarier? I mean, either way, it just doesn't quite work for me. So that's the impression I get from this trailer of Outlast. It looks like they're technically making it a survival horror game. It has survival horror mechanics. You hide under a bed. You can't get more survival horror than hiding under a bed. But the aesthetics look like frickin' Call of Duty or something. You're constantly just all these interactions with the environment are completely unnecessary. They don't add to the game play, and they make it feel unnatural. They make it feel like you're not just moving through this environment yourself, but you're joined at the hip with this NPC that you're dragging around, and the NPC is fondling all the walls and sticking his hands places you wouldn't the entire level. So I don't know. Hopefully this trailer is just a rough draft. It's just like a very loose interpretation of it. I would imagine that they tried to cram everything they could into as small a space as possible, because that's what trailers are for. I really hope the game turns out better than this, because right now it is trying too hard to be an action game. It's not an action game if this is all the game is. If you don't ever get a gun and start killing zombies, if it's just hiding under beds the whole game, then it is a survival horror game. But it looks and feels like an action game, and they need to fix that.